Tadaima. Um, this is an article that's for subscribers only, but this is the part that I was able to see without subscribing. And honestly, it really hit home for me. I wish I could see the whole thing. I'm uh, honestly waiting for a card to come from the bank. And even if I had it here, I probably wouldn't subscribe to CNN. Um, what this is the problem that I am finding among a lot of my peer group and older, and I don't know how to address it, because the church is the church is feeding into this story, and the video I posted right before this is me addressing this story before it even came out. All right, so it's called private. Let's see. 10 hours ago. Today is Monday, the last day of June, so June 30th. And it's for subscribers, and I'm not reading the whole thing. I'm only reading the first, what was available to be seen before the subscription kicked in. Apocalyptic stories about the rapture and non-believers being left behind have shaped white evangelicals' imagination for years. They also might influence what happens next in America's clash with Iran. I just cannot believe that Christians are using the Bible to endorse genocide, but that's not this topic. When most people contemplate the future of America's conflict with Iran, they hunt for clues in grainy satellite photos, statements from military analysis, and President Trump's social media posts. But when scholar Diane Butler-Bass, considers what could happen next, her thoughts run towards another group she says is now thinking more about prophecy than politics. That's true. She recalls warnings from her childhood about the rise of an antichrist, stories about weeping mothers clutching their empty blankets after their babies were suddenly raptured to heaven, and paintings of an angry Jesus leading armies of angels to an Armageddon-like final battle in modern-day Israel. Those stories terrified and thrilled Bass while she heard them growing up in a white evangelical church in the 70s. It was a time when the end always seemed near, and books like the bestseller The Late Great Planet Earth warned Christians to gird their loins for a period of great tribulation and prepare for Jesus' triumphant return to Jerusalem. Bass, a prominent progressive religious author who hosts a popular Substack newsletter called The Cottage, no longer believes those stories. Yet when she considers why the U.S. struck 3 nuclear facilities in Iran this month and what could happen next, she offers a prophecy of her own. Bombing Iran will reinforce Trump's status as God's chosen one, and Israel has chosen as his chosen nation among many of the president's white evangelical supporters. And this is true. I would say it's gospel true, to be a little bit funny, but I don't want to be disrespectful. Many of these supporters dismiss the dangers of a larger war, she tells CNN, because such a clash would mean the world is approaching the end times, a series of cataclysmic events ushering in the second coming of Christ, and the rise of Israel as the fulfillment of biblical prophecies. I suppose my emotions and personal feelings were, I let loose on the last video about those, so I don't need to talk about that as much here. I do want to kind of demonstrate how easy it is to blow things up using PowerPoint, even if I don't need to save it. See how I can just don't save it. And the Nazarenes are a class of people that we're going to have to start looking at more critically. And when I say critically, I don't mean that in the sense of we need to be judging them or us. I consider myself to be a Nazarene. I when as people learn how Mormonism was founded, they tend to alienate themselves from the word Mormon or Latter Day Saints or whatever uh, the proper verbiage is nowadays. Um, and there's a lot of religions or groups that when they, like Scientology, when you learn more about it and discover that it's a very, very expensive sci-fi book, um, people are offended and leave. But I feel like I'm Nazarene because of I was taught that Nazarenes are the helpers, we're the witnesses, we're the people who we're the people who see it and call it out like it is. Um, I saw an episode of Marco Polo, I think it's called, on, I can't remember where it is. Maybe it's Max, maybe it's Netflix. Um, and he, Marco Polo, I think, was asked, demanded to stay in his capacity serving the head Khan. And there's a whole nuance between Chinese and Mongolian that I don't know much about at all, so I'm not pretending to know that world at all. I know about kanji, but I don't even know what Chinese people call the characters. Um, but he's calling it like he sees it. The empire behind the the um the umpire behind the plate calls balls and strikes as he sees it. It has been ingrained in me on a daily basis for as long as I can remember. Having my grandmother come over in the morning as I finished my paper route, and she would be doing her exercises that looked like dancing, and Grandpa was offended by her doing these exercises because he called it dancing. So she came over and we had a go-go dancer during our breakfast that was often something like oatmeal that my mom loved us, made sure we had something hot in our stomach every morning. And she would go through the church prayer list and explain item by item um, who's doing what to help whom. And that, I don't know how that works in this world. Um, I don't know how uh, people like her. Now she wasn't always honest, um, but she always tried. She was always trying. She was always trying to. My uncle did his best to keep her happy by having Christmas with my dad every year. And there were some years where the only time I saw my dad was at my uncle's house. And so I know how unpleasant it was for him, and I know he had to medicate himself to tolerate us, which kind of colored how fun things were for me, because I understood that we were traumatizing him. But it made my grandma very, very happy to see everybody together. She got her picture of all the grandkids on the stairway, and that was something that we did for her because she tried. But she also disowned her daughter at one point. And her other daughter couldn't understand the lies that she would tell. And words, I've come to understand that words don't mean the same thing to everybody. So while my aunt might think a word, my grandma was never an RN. I think what they agreed on was that she was essentially an LPN. Now, I didn't ever really care about what certification gave you which access. My grandma worked somewhere and was replaced by 3 people when she left or something like that. And she was a hard worker. She spent her time putting out effort trying to take care of other people, and sometimes that backfired. And I had friends that were offended when she'd say that she'd pray for them. But she didn't say that meaning or at least I did not interpret her saying that as meaning malice on anyone, but I do understand now that it can mean that she was judging them. Um, my point though is Nazarenes as a class of people. I looked at it's like kind of like a divorce. When my church behaved badly, I wasn't sure I wanted to keep the word Nazarene, but I realized that I'm a Nazarene whether or not the church uh, retains its honor in that Nazarene world. And mean to, I don't think it's healthy to blindly obey anybody. And people have called me a troublemaker because I don't necessarily blindly obey anything, anybody, and especially not my dad. And my dad, at when I was 17, thought, it, coming back from Japan, that if I needed a spanking, I would just stand there and take it, and I wouldn't. I would just leave. So it wasn't like there was violence. There was a threat of violence, and I would leave. So it wasn't like I didn't have the trauma that I experienced when I came back from Japan wasn't from my dad. I'd been estranged from my dad for a long time. I was the only one who could say no to my dad. My mom wouldn't say no to him. Um, and I think my brother was kind of jealous of the authority that I had because I knew the rules, I would follow the rules, and I had the confidence to say no to my dad. And I think that if somebody had the courage to say no to Trump, or courage to say no to some of the things the Nazarene Church is doing, we wouldn't be in this predicament where we are using prophecy to justify a contemporary war, and pretending that Israel is something that it isn't. I'm not. I'm not. I don't think you can look at Israel out of context of the Bible. I think it's important that history is taken into consideration, but we didn't give them all of the land promised them in Exodus. Uh, when I say we, I'm not sure that I definitely was not part of the we. Um, I don't know why Ben Netanyahu, frankly, is still the leader of Israel. I would think that they would have the ability to have replaced him by now. But I don't know enough about Israel to. It wasn't my problem, wasn't my area, wasn't somewhere I wanted to be. It involved way more drama than I cared to know about. But Nazarenes as a class are using Israel. So under this huge umbrella of nationalism, we're supposed to care about arming Israel to preemptively bomb Iran and feel good about it. And I'm not sure that I can be sold that bill of goods. Israel is committing war crimes, and instead of recognizing that killing children, because the Bible said so, is I don't think how the Bible is supposed to be used. Um, like the last video I said, and I guess I'm being redundant now. This is this is what disconnected or disorganized thinking sounds like. Um, I don't think somebody replying that we should kill the Palestinians because they've been multiplying is a really good sell for the Nazarene Church. I do not think that saying we should elect Trump because the Bible said so is a good sell for the Nazarene Church. And at some point, we have to look at the reality that the Church of the Nazarene, as a legal entity in the United States of America in 2025, is required to abide certain laws that the Bible says, render unto Caesar what is Caesar's. Well, in the United States of America, as a 501c3, the Church of the Nazarene is tax exempt for a purpose. And I don't think it's lawful for them to use the church to push a criminal into office and sanction a genocide. I kind of am blown away on its face that that's something that people think is appropriate. But um, I am, I'm finding that to be true. And I don't know how to deal with the people who find genocide to be appropriate in 2025 because the Bible said so. I don't understand how people who use phrases like "I have Jesus in my heart" can then sanction using munitions from the United States of America, things that have our brand on it, to commit un unfathomable, unchristian, inhumane acts against other humans. It just, it blows me away. And I guess this is my channel for where I get to show off my disorganized thinking. I'm supposed to, I'm not supposed to. I intend to have a more carefully crafted channel where I hopefully can take these disorganized thinking, take this disorganized thinking and organize it in a way that makes more sense. But this is where I'm going to be putting stuff that triggers me, and hearing more and more and more about how people are using the Bible to endorse Trump, I find appalling. I can't understand it. I just really just can't understand how Trump has so successfully ingratiated himself among Christians who I thought were smarter than this. And if we have to take, I mean, there's a point where people sued the Catholic Church, there's a point where people sued the Mormon Church, there's points where people sued Scientology, and it's possible that as a class action we might have to sue the Church of the Nazarene in order to stop Trump, because I do not think that Trump would be where he is right now. I know that there's a whole bunch of stuff that's happening back east to give him the numbers, but the money that comes from Oregon that goes to educate people into the MAGA world back east is I think unlawful. And at some point, especially with the Supreme Court that's telling us we need to be acting in classes, it might be, I've been saying this for a long time, as a class, Nazarenes as a class need to consider what's being done by our church and decide if we want to be a part of it. I know so many in the past people who would want to be exempt from this mindset would simply leave the church, but I'm not sure that's the safe possibility that it used to be. I'm not sure that leaving the church to continue to grow, I mean, frankly, that's what the gal said about Palestinians. Well, did you see how their numbers ballooned in the last 70 years? They've been reproducing and growing. People aren't deer that we need to cull because we got rid of all the bears and the cougar. But the Nazarene Church has a lot of money that it is funding Israel with, and we need to seriously look at whether or not we want that money to go, well, as a tax entity, as a 501c3, we have to look at whether or not their political influence is justified under current law, and I don't know how the Nazarene Church has avoided accountability in that regards. Okay, so this is my triggered rant. Now I'm going to go on and work on something a little bit more constructive, and I guess that's it for now.